Ladies and gentlemen, Maureen Muldoon.
So good to be here. Thank you, Colum and Eileen. Amazing. And Brenda Maria and Mari and Joni and Richard and all of the helping hands, Mary and Deb, all of the helping hands that bring this conversation out every Sunday. I wanted to start with the piece of Course in Miracles. It says, "A messenger is not the one who writes the message. He delivers, nor does he question the right of him who does, nor ask why he has been chosen to receive the message that he brings, or why somebody has been chosen to receive the message that he brings. It's enough that he just accepts, gives it to the ones to whom it's intended, and fulfill his role in delivering it," which is really nice. And I experience that almost every Sunday when I'm speaking or whenever I'm doing a workshop or anything, that when I'm just supposed to share a message, I don't feel like it's a message that I have penned or written, which is very, very good because it feels like there's a guidance that I just get to listen to and I attempt to get out of the way. And the reason that's good is because it's liberating, and we're talking about freedom. And it's liberating because I don't have to take the fame and I don't have to take the blame. I just get to lay it out. And the truth is, especially for Sunday's Hawks, I get to witness, you get to witness, everybody who channels gets to witness just being the first one to receive it. That's all. My role, as the Course suggests, is just that I get to receive it first. And this is the same with teaching A Course in Miracles, or with teaching anything, or with sharing anything, is that, we listen to the voice of God, as was already demonstrated today. So today we're talking about delivering your most realized self to the world so that you can experience yourself. And yeah, we're talking about freedom, which, despite what you may believe, freedom is actually my favorite F word. I know. I have been spitting a few other really fun F words I'm known for, but there's just so many fun F words. But freedom is actually my God's honest favorite. It's also why I love A Course in Miracles, because it gives me that freedom. And this week, as we said, we're kicking off our 10th round of Miracles Live 365, and then our third round in Ireland. And this is a program that helps us to look at our thought systems. A Course in Miracles is a book with 3 books inside of it. And the one that we cover is 365 days of mind training, of exercises that assist us in choosing love over fear, so that we can get to that experience of past the illusion and into the limitless nature of our being. And it is done through forgiveness and fearlessness. Forgiveness is the blocks to love, and fearlessness is what happens after you forgive those blocks. You just get to move into the space and grace of a fully lit life of love. And you get to do what you always wanted to do, which is like to experience the audacious nature of your being. You get to live lit up. And so I'm pretty unapologetic when it comes to my passion around these programs, because for the past 10 years, I've gotten front row seats, to witness people literally, figurative, and spiritually wake up, find themselves, their voice, their power, their passion, their peace, and their people. Beautiful friendships have been birthed through these early morning calls, not just acquaintances, but friendships, real, true, beautiful relationships where you break bread with each other and share your most intimate details. And it's been a beautiful thing to watch and witness. I didn't know that that would be the outcome of doing this program. I had no idea, of course. Most of the time, I have no idea about anything. And it also has given me front row seats to watching broken winged people learn to fly. And it has given me the opportunity to learn to fly like way past, like beyond what I could ever have even imagined for myself. And the truth is, I'm still soaring, and so are you. So yeah, it was inspired by Blackbird. Blackbird singing in the dead of night, take these broken wings and learn to fly. We're only waiting for this moment to arise. It said that Paul McCartney was inspired to write that song by a bird that he heard singing when he was studying transcendental meditation with the Beatles in India. The song was also a response to the racial tensions that were escalating in the United States during the spring of 1968. But here's the thing about 1968 in the United States, and maybe across the globe, it was a bit of a shitstorm. I mean, terrible things. There was just a lot of crazy things that were happening. First of all, Robert F. Kennedy was assassinated 2 years after his brother, our president, was assassinated. Martin Luther King was assassinated. That was a terrible thing. Growing opposition was rising against the Vietnam War. There was class differences. There were economic problems. There was a civil rights movement that was finally birthing some really powerful advocates for equality, even though at the time we were not ready for it. And this was also the year of birth control, which is amazing, and really fired up the feminist movement, which again, we were like not ready for all of this change. It was happening despite us. And so much was shifting and changing in the middle of the chaos and this change. Paul McCartney hears the call of this blackbird, and he's practicing meditation. So he's turning inward. He's listening to this song, and he takes this chaos and he creates something so good and so beautiful and so holy. He doesn't listen to the world. He listens to his soul. Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Take these sunken eyes and learn to see. All your life you were only waiting for this moment to arise. Blackbird fly. The zeitgeist of 1968 seems like it's still happening, because we're still in this ever flux and ever flow, rising and falling of power, ebbing and flowing of progress and pullback, and the pendulum continues to swing. But in order to evolve, we cannot define ourselves by the fickle nature of this world. Now, these are the times that we must listen to our soul song, not the world. The world will have you vacillating between turbulence and triumphs and turbulence and triumphs. Like I started out saying, like when you're a messenger and you listen to your soul song to deliver to the world, you don't have to take, fame or blame for it. You just deliver it. And so we don't have to get hung up on these turbulence and triumphs, because both of them are distracting. We want to get beneath the ebb and flow and listen to our own soul song. We want to follow the song of our soul, because that song will lead us to freedom. And what does freedom mean? It means that we are past the pain, the preferences, the personalities, the lack, the suffering, all of the limited beliefs. And to be beyond this fractured fray of a world, to be past the reaches and to be fully anchored in your own gnosis, as Brenda Marie mentioned earlier. Your knowing of yourself and who you are and whose you are, no matter what path you take, and there are many to take to this experience of freedom. The one thing that we need to do to arrive at this space of grace is that we must get still and listen, as Paul McCartney did with the blackbird, and fully honor the source. The source, ourselves, and our souls. We have to hear what that has to say for us. So I know it's not new news, right? I mean, we've heard 1,000 times before, and we'll probably hear 1,000 times more, because we apparently need to repeat this to seek first God. We know this already, but do we practice it? Do we embody it? Because it's quite an easy thing to actually practice. It just means to go to God first. It means to pray first. It means to love first. It means to, love is synonymous with God. So it just means to put this love first, to ask, what would love have me do? And as you honor and listen to the source, you're going to begin to know yourself, your true self, because nothing leaves its source. What does that mean? That is a concept from A Course in Miracles. A ray of sun doesn't leave the sun, and it carries everything that the sun has. It doesn't dabble in shadows. A seed of an apple doesn't produce a carrot. Nothing leaves its source. Now, that idea can be kind of scary to us, because when we think you are God incarnate, you are Christ consciousness in a living body. And you might think like, that seems like a huge responsibility. But again, you know, in some recesses of your minds, you know that this is true. I'm not telling you something that you don't know or that you haven't heard before. But again, it's one thing to hear it, agree with it, recognize it as truth, and another thing to embody it. Are you willing? Are you ready to be a fully fleshed out experience of this truth? It takes us time to embody this truth, not that it's a process, although it can be a process, like when we go through, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous or the 365 lessons of A Course in Miracles. It can be a process, but when I say like it takes time, what I mean is that it takes us taking back our time and saying, I'm going to anchor first in God, in truth, in love, because that's my source. I'm going to go back to my source before I do anything, because that's who I am. And I need to check in fully and completely with who I am. When I was praying in the group this morning, I prayed everybody in. I forgot to include myself. So it's so easy to forget. It's so easy for us to want to extend and extend and extend. And it's sometimes harder for us to get still, to listen in, to listen up. When we don't honor this truth, we begin to identify with the ebb and flow and the push and pull of the very hungry world that wants us to fit into its agenda. And that is a hard no. Only a fool would take a lead from such a fickle source. That this source, of the world that will love you and love you and love you and then hate you and hate you and hate you. That's the world. That's what happens. Buchner, one of my favorite quotes of Buchner is that the world is a beautiful and terrible place. Be not afraid. I just love that because that is the truth. We can't blame the world. I think somebody needs to mute themselves, Joni. I'm not sure who it is. Anyway, we can't blame the world because you're not of the world. You are far, far, far from all of that. You are the flow of God's ink into this world. And if you allow yourself to be in that flow, to stay true to that source and live a life that is on point with your actual truth, you will experience a life that stands you still in awe. You will experience that. You can't please the world. You're not a people pleaser. You're here to please truth and self. And then your brother. And the sign of the cross helps us to remember that. It says, Father, me, and then everybody else. Because if I don't connect with this, I don't have any business going here. You want to stay with this and stay with this and stay with this until this overflows into this. But when you go to this first, you will drain yourself. It might sound selfish, but it's actually the most generous thing that you can give your brother is your fully self-realized, actualized self. And you must know that honoring yourself 100% is your work because you're the only one who can do that. You have direct connection with your divine, but if you hide it or if you hand off your power in some way, you will never arrive at the state of freedom. There's this essay by Ralph Waldo Emerson on self-reliance, and many of the practitioners today will possibly remember it because it was a required piece of reading of becoming a licensed spiritual practitioner. And he says, a man should learn to detect and watch the gleam of light which flashes across his mind within. A woman should learn to detect and watch the gleam of light that flashes before her mind, more than the luster and firmament of bards and sages. Yet she dismisses without notice their thoughts because they are theirs. So basically what he's saying is, think for yourself because your thoughts matter. We are prone here to acquiesce our power. We get gurus and guides and we dismiss our own brilliance. And to say that your thoughts matter is not just some sort of poetic thing. It's, scientific. Your thoughts dictate the matter and the tonality of your experience. Your life is a summation of what you think. And Ralph goes on to say, I call him Ralph because we're on first terms. He goes on to say that, and I love this part, he goes on to say that every work of genius that we recognize In every work of genius, we recognize our own rejected thoughts. They come back to us with certain alienated majesty. What does that mean? It means, have you ever had that experience of seeing something really cool and thinking, I could have done that. I could do that. I have that thought so often, really. I mean, that people are like, Maureen, stop it, stay in your lane. So you don't want to overdo that. But when you see something, have you ever had the experience where you see someone else moving forward on your good idea that you left on the back burner? I mean, what an uncomfortable moment to watch your aborted dreams parade around as someone else's reality. So we don't want that. But that is what sells all the magazines, and that is what keeps you scrolling instead of showing up to your calling. It's very addictive not to participate in your own life. But if we're brave enough, we will. If we're not brave enough to take action and see for ourselves what this whole thing of living is all about, we'll be stuck in the role of voyeurism, consuming as opposed to creating. Or another thing we could tend to do is hop on some other dazzling bus that comes our way and get swept off instead of living in our truth, becoming a cog in someone else's experience. And we take actions on dreams that are not actually our dreams and desires, but someone else's leftover breadcrumbs. And we fill our lives with these failures and fantasies, attempting to walk in shoes that give us blisters on paths that lead us nowhere. Because we're not fully listening. We're not fully listening. We have not actually sat down to listen. And that's not a big ask. When it comes time for everyone experiences this moment, this time will come where we experience too much pain. And this game we start to lose it to the degree that we say no, and we settle down and we get still. And if we don't get still, life stills us, pulls the rug out, brings us the dis-ease so that we can experience this stillness. But we could get there before, life has to throw in the bitch smack. So this is the time when we roll up our sleeves and we simply and fully invest in ourselves. This time when we can no longer linger in the half-lived expressions of ourselves, when we know that we are representing the divine light of God. So here's the thing, my brave and beautiful little blackbirds. The thing we fear second to God is ourselves. Our fully unedited, unaffected, unbiased, unbribable, unapologetic, innocent self. That's what we fear, that power. We have, all of you have gotten here, have already questioned God. You've already probably divorced and excused that old broken down God. You've questioned it. You've given up this judgmental, angry version of God for a kinder, more compassionate, more generous, more generative God. But have we done due diligence to question ourselves? Or do we walk in shadows accepting the lot that we've established? Do we live in the prisons of the known? The way to know yourself is to let go of all that you think you know, to look at what you think you know and actually deny it. And I know that sounds crazy, but if we don't do that, we risk an unquestioned life. We wish living in this unquestioned life. So the questions that we want to look at are just like, just to begin to look at everything. I know myself as a messy person. I know myself as an organized person. I know myself as a meticulous person. I know myself as a cat lover, a dog lover, a wife, a gardener. I know myself as having a green thumb. I can't keep a plant alive for the life of me. I have a powerful voice. I'm a public speaker. I'm afraid of my own voice. I don't ever know what to say. I love blueberries. I hate blueberries. I mean, you can look at everything. Last week, Todd Fink came and he gave us this invitation to get curious, but did we? You might think that some of these things are steadfast. I can't question that. I am definitely a wife. But these things are not steadfast, because tomorrow you could get divorced and you won't be a wife. So all of these things live in the ebb and flow of the world. They're simply titles and preferences. That's all they are. And in some cases, they're broken inheritances that we have taken on because we want to fit into what the current codes of our environments were that we grew up in. And we never even stopped to question them. But you were never supposed to fit in. You were destined and designed to be a force of brilliance. Everything else is a waste of your time. So take all that you think you know and attempt to let it go. Be willing to step out of the box. This past year was on my birthday. I sat in contemplation, and I got a word for my year. Actually, I got a lot of words. I got a lot of S words. I won't tell you all of them, but one of them was sing. And it was not something that was asked of me of the world. I didn't find that out in the world. I found it from my internal teacher. And this is not something really I know myself as, singing. I like to sing. I'm a big hummer, in some aspects of my life, I feel fine singing, and in other aspects and places in my life, even growing up, it wasn't safe for me to sing. But I sat down and I listened, and I turned from the world that might say, well, what is this word sing? You're too old to sing, or you're not a great singer, or you are a good singer, or the world will say to make it it will only have meaning if it's professional, or 1,000 other nonsensical ideas from the world, instead of what my soul simply said was sing. That's all it said, and we're all born to sing. So like I said, I've always enjoyed singing and making up songs without really even knowing or thinking of myself that way. But I began to let go of not knowing myself that way. And it was interesting because even recently somebody asked me, do you write songs? And I said no. And I just said no, and the conversation went on, and then I was like, what? I'm like, that's so weird that I said no. I've written a musical. I've written songs with Kathy Richardson. I have music that I've written that it's in films. So obviously there's a weird block there. There's something that I don't want to know. This is probably true for you as well. This is happening without our questioning. But when we get still and we begin to listen to our soul, it gets weird. It gets vulnerable. It gets scary. I've never entertained that aspect of myself. It's just not something that I've done. But it's sort of the thing that sort of danced on the circumference of my knowing of myself. So I question this and listen. And I just begin to invite that idea of sing into my life, which is what I started to do with this sermon and other places in my life. And this is what my soul wants. I don't have to deny it. I don't have to explain it. I do have to pay attention to it, though. The idea is just to question, because if you question even a little, you will learn a lot. Are you wondering? Would you like to know? Are you wavering between yes and no? If you're curious, if you've got some doubts, if you're here or there, if you're in or out, life's a riddle, it's so notorious. We don't blame you if you're curious. Who would you be without all the confusion? When will you be free from living in illusion? Let's take all the risks, chuck the recipe, add some fruits and nuts, live authentically, try out something new that you didn't know, raise your freak flag high, let your colors show. Who would you be? So this is the time to rise, to question, all that you think you are, and to question all that you know you're not, and get still and close out from the world and take an hour, take more, take your time back. I'm taking a month, but there have been times when I took a full year to really take a knee and turn within and listen up to the only source that's really going to tell you what you're here for. I've been taking my time, I've been biding my time, and it's nothing short of magnificence. So take your time, turn off the TV, stop the scrolling and the stalling, and listen to those unquestioned allegiances. And once you've taken all of your time, don't give it back. Don't surrender it to unproductive bedfellows. Write out a list. Look at the unlived, unloved aspects of yourself, all of the places where you say, I'm not, I can't, I wouldn't, I shouldn't. I'm not an athlete, a singer, a painter, a mother, a sex pot, a mogul. Well, you'll never be then. But no, just know if you're denying something, it will come back in the shadows and wreak havoc on your life. And you can ask me about that during the questions. Ernest Holmes, and I'm going to close with this. Ernest Holmes says, an open mind will entertain all possibilities. And this helps us to silence the ego. I am as God created me. You are as God created you. We cannot leave our source. We are limitless. I am taking on this adventure of my full potential. Are you taking in and on this adventure of your full potential? Do you know who you are? Because only you can. What happens in vagueness stays in vagueness. Don't be afraid of knowing yourself, claiming yourself, living into yourself, because you're the only one that can do that. And why would you refuse the only thing that you can do? So I'm going to actually close with this. My other least favorite F word is forgiveness. Something I shouldn't confess, because forgiveness is really hard. But many of us here have already done that work. We've gotten through all the muck and mire of that deep, grooves of unforgiveness. And after we do the forgiveness work, the only thing that's left is love. And after we do the forgiveness work and the only thing that's left is love, we end up having a lot of time on our hands. And so with this time, we could fly. And with this time, you could experience your full flight. It's your time. It's yours. So take the time to ask these questions and figure out how you're going to spend it.